Okay, let's jump in and do a few questions here. Let's start with the Q&A one we've got. Okay, so I'll read this out and then we can process it. This is from well, where'd it go? There it goes. Okay, from Tomislav. As Atlassian is rolling out Team Central updates, where you will be able to have people and teams listed together with their relationships or their relations, will that be in fact improved version of Insight Employee Directory Database? That's the first question. The question goes in a direction whether you should use Insight for Employee Database or move to Team Central for that.
Yeah, great question.
I love that question.
Yeah, I do too. And so let me kind of tell folks, Team Central, if you're in, we're about teams. We realize teams work across many flows of work. I heard that in what James was talking about, some of the things going on in his organization. So we're building capability of the platform to understand, hey, what teams do you belong to? How do you create those teams and form them? They're outside a little bit of resolver groups. That's a whole capability of the platform is working on. There's some additional stuff going on right now. One of the things that has come up since the acquisition of Insight is, hey, what's the source of truth of some of that data that might inform that? Because we do have access that's available. So Atlassian Access is connected to Okta, 80 Sync, and we're looking at that. I was just finishing with a customer that's rolling out in the Chicago area retail area, and they are using Insight for their people data. They're using an import of, I think, a weekly sync of that data hasn't changed. They're not a big organization. I mean, they're still an enterprise, I would say, on the lower end, less than probably 1,000 employees or so, but they're synchronizing. I think Insight's a phenomenal place because the reason why they chose that, they're going to use the Teams feature in some ways, but what they're going to do is make use of that because that they can connect it in the way that sees fit. So certain fields that you need out of your people data put into request tickets. I think they're coming off a remedy, so they're going to recreate work orders. So it gave them the pliability and the flexibility they needed. With that said, the Teams capability is a phenomenal platform feature, and as we move further down the road, you'll start to see more of those integrations come together. So hopefully that answered your good. I'm glad you asked about this. Good question.
Yeah. So I right now we are recommending to most of our clients, depending on the use case, also that they use Insight. Insight's really robust for this. Team Central is right now, I think, really good for that reporting aspect of it. Weekly reminders and stuff. And then Alaskan may or may not eventually connect the two, but I would say that for those different purposes, like Paul said, team data, individual staff data makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think no official roadmap commitment around that because there's a lot of learning going on. It's one thing I love about our product teams is they know there's a need. We want to make sure that we come with the right connection of that data. So spot on in that recommendation.
And Team Central is still in beta too, so it has
Yes.
a lot of iterations to go, I think.
And I think it highlights, so we launched something called the Alpha Initiative within, I'm not even gonna get it right. It's on our website. So Atlassian being an engineering first centric organization, teams within Atlassian can come in and pitch new ideas that they're learning from the customers. We have launched Jira Work Management, which is a new version of the Jira Core from years ago, Team Central, and now Compass. There are a couple other products in the incubator that they're working through. So you'll start to see more of these great just innovations coming onto the platform that are solving what organizations, teams are trying to do. But I'm glad you mentioned it is in early access.
That is a perfect segue to our next question. Steve, do you want to say something first?
I was going to say earlier in the chat, we had another product comparison question, so I wanted to throw that out there. Is that what you were going?
Perfect segue. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we got a question earlier. It said early in the presentation, I saw mention of JSM and workflow management. I think you mean work management. But if not, correct me and we'll figure out what that means. What are the key differences between the two and which teams are best suited for one or the other? Jira Work Management, as Paul just said, is a rebranding of Jira Core, which is the fundamental engine of Jira. Jira software adds onto Jira Core with agile boards, agile reporting, sprints, all of that stuff. And Jira Service Management adds on to fundamental Jira with all of these ITSM functionality and portals and everything else. Jira Work Management now adds on to Jira Core a lot of business team focused functionality. We actually have a business teams webinar that Heather, if you can find that and drop it in chat, that'd be super helpful. So work management is around small business teams or large business teams for that matter, HR, marketing, legal, finance, and them tracking their tasks and then providing different views for seeing their tasks on a roadmap, a calendar, in a list, in a table. It is a replacement for spreadsheets and road mapping. It's also, if you're used to using Trello, it is Trello in Jira is a simplified way to say it, because a lot of the new functions that went into Trello, road mapping and calendar, and those views got added to Jira Work Management. Whereas Jira Service Management is basic Jira issue tracking plus a portal and all of these ITSM features that we were showing you today around change management, incident management, service management. Does anybody else have anything to say about that? There's I mean, very, very different audiences, you know, ITSM and service teams and business teams. The one caveat is that I would argue that all business teams are also service teams. So if you want that centralized intake through a portal, if you're tired of the whole 360 degrees of intake problem, your boss, the phone, chat, email, adding a service management project to a business team is really helpful. And the service management project can be a front-end intake for a particularly busy business team. Like, you know, legal can set up a support portal, and that can make contract review that much easier. And then legal can have their own work management project in the background. We can even synchronize the two using automation if you want, but they can manage all their internal tasks there and all their external, you know, internal customer-facing tasks through the service desk. A lot going on there.
So we just got another question that came across. If that's all we were going to talk about with JSM and work,
I think so,
that
yeah.
covers it, or work management. So the next question we had come across was, will Atlassian's version of Insight on Cloud support some of the existing on-prem functionality of the object type attributes actually displaying on an Insight custom field, like an object selector? And yes, actually, there's capability when you create an Insight object selection field, you can actually choose what attributes display, as well as you can choose what attributes are searchable by. And then you get that. We used to not get it, but now we get that nice lozenge view of all and that integrated panel that you can expand to scale the attributes in an issue once they're selected as well. So yeah, that's been expanded really fast here recently. That was one of the points that we were looking forward to with Insight coming with larger Insight support coming to cloud, and so that functionality is there now, and it's super useful. Yeah,
that's a key new field that they've added, and that capability actually, it goes beyond what the on-prem version has. And one thing they just released is the hierarchical. So if I come in and say, hey, this is from a customer example I was reviewing after implementation, I have the application and they need to know the module. But what the customer really loved, they replaced ServiceNow, is that they have you can choose what additional data is there below it for them in the portal. And then when the agent gets it, you can choose which attributes are there. That was a phenomenal leap forward for them, because he said, you're giving my agents really rich context in the decision point, whereas before they always had to go into a table and they would go through. It's a different paradigm that ServiceNow has. And for them, it was a significant savings that they could take the data that matters most and place it, in the view. And that's a great thing. And there's a lot more out there that the team is coming back to around the UX with Insight. They're not done yet, especially the interface for managing it. That's the thing that I didn't get in the roadmap. There'll be a whole nother layer around managing, searching, some great stuff coming in this upcoming next year.
We had a couple of questions submitted ahead of time. Steve, I'm also cognizant of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we still have a few more minutes.
Okay. A couple more questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the ones I really liked, how do I increase the adoption of ticket deflection within the knowledge base, using the knowledge base first? First of all, that's a great question. Thank you for shifting left. Paul had that in his presentation. Self-service is fantastic. I think the real key to adopting ticket deflection is to write articles that people want to read, and to help them resolve their problems easily. Basically, and that may sound simple, but really I think it's a mind shift. You want to write your you want to write your articles from the customer's viewpoint and not from the service manager's viewpoint. And I think a lot of people forget that. That also happens a lot when setting up portals. What are the fields that I need to know to fulfill the ticket, as opposed to writing them necessarily in a way that what does the customer know that they can tell me? And so, lots of testing, calling over your significant other on the couch and saying, hey, does this make sense to you? Like, do you understand what I'm writing here? That kind of stuff is really helpful.
And there is a lot of reporting surrounding, deflected ticket reporting, where you can actually see which articles are resulting in a deflected ticket. That's all out of the box reporting in Jira Service Management. So that's a really good tool to even see, once you've made the articles, see whether or not they're working and potentially get feedback on those articles.
Yeah.
It also kind of rolls into another question we got earlier on, which was how do we make sure that the knowledge base, one, gets updated with new knowledge, because you learn a lot from customers. Every agent, when they're working tickets, learns a lot of information sometimes about their systems that they didn't know, because a problem comes up and they're like, well, I've never seen that before, let's fix it. And when that process happens, how do we make sure that information gets into a knowledge base ticket? And the best thing we can say is empower your agents. One, give them the time in there, because a lot of times agents are caught up in answering tickets, fixing problems, and they don't get to actually take the time to slow down and go, okay, I want to write an article that covers this problem I just dealt with. Make sure you give them that time and make it a regular part of their job and even part of their job description. And the nice thing about this tool is that it does support creating knowledge-based articles straight from a ticket. And that's a great way to, when a ticket gets resolved, even build into your internal process of, okay, once we resolve a ticket, check and make sure there's a knowledge-based article. If it would be, valuable, make sure there's a knowledge-based article that exists, and then go out, if there's not, go out and create one or update the existing one and make sure it's got that information. But the biggest thing is give your agents the time of day to have the ability to go ahead and create and update those articles. That's really comes down to an internal process.
Yep. And I think one thing I've noticed with an organization recently is doing a 30-day retro of the service desk team, that they come in and they're reviewing it. And one thing that this manager mentioned, there's a greater investment from those that are the frontline staff in the way that they're learning. And as they look through the tickets, say, hey, I can save time by getting the knowledge. One thing I mentioned about the standalone knowledge that's coming, Confluence will remain in its value, but what we wanted to do is get something that we have greater ability to bring insights up, managing those knowledge articles. So you'll see a lot more of knowledge management built there that I think you're going to find really valuable for the practices you're describing. So those are great recommendations.
One thing I'd like to try to do real quick before we go further with the questioning is, if anybody who's okay with it, if you wouldn't mind unmuting your video for the webinar. We'd like to try to get a Zoom snapshot of the participants.
I see.
So if folks are on the line, let's see if we can get a view up here of all of the participants. That would be really great. Just if not, we'll just have names up there. But
I guess it's just panelists. It would be James, us, and Paul.
Yeah. So
and actually look at the camera, smile.
Yeah. Hey, give a good wave, and we'll get maybe the project coordinators can get a quick snapshot of it while we're doing that. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks. All right, let's hit maybe a couple more questions.
Sure. My customers get frustrated that they aren't getting regular updates when an issue takes time to resolve. I'd be surprised, because Jira Service Management automatically updates you, but the second part makes more sense. What is the best way to poke the assignee or the related dev team to provide updates to the customer? I recommend a very large stick. I would say that perhaps the support team needs to go have a conversation with the developers. The tool provides really easy commentability. There's also automation where you can link the service ticket to the developer's ticket, and you can even have it automatically close, or you can build automation that keeps those two tickets in sync if you want. If you're a small organization, the developer could also be the support agent. But I would say just have a refresh across your teams about the importance of communication, and have at it. And if that fails, the large stick usually works for a short while.
The coordinators are waving.
Oh, hey, that's great.
There we go.
Fun. So there we go.
Hey,
All right.
thanks for your help, coordinators. Okay, one more question before we wrap up for the day.
You want to do this one?
Yeah. So, So we've been using add-ons to blend the Jira-based product with other ITSM solutions like Zendesk or ServiceNow. We see a lot of people trying to connect. They have these systems in place already. They don't want to move away from them, so they try to like kind of Frankenstein a connection there. What's the advantage of moving all of this to the Atlassian ecosystem, and what is a good process to start with that? So, as we heard from James, it is worth it to move over into the Atlassian ecosystem. The biggest advantages are cost, getting away from legacy systems that no longer are providing the value that you need. But also, there's just fantastic native integration, and as Paul's talked about, Atlassian is doing such a good job of moving forward with increasing flexibility, increasing native integrations, and making everything work together as one process. And so the service management stuff incoming and that service platform is going to be huge for that. A good process for getting that started is going to be, beginning to evaluate each of the products you have in play. Look at Atlassian, look at the potential replacement products they have, and then go one product at a time and evaluate them, evaluate the advantages, and potentially, of course, that's our job is we do evaluate Atlassian and not Atlassian products and help identify advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons, and help you with that decision-making process. And so if it's something that you guys feel like is a little overwhelming, or there's too many things to process at once, let us know. That's our specialty. That's what we do, and we can assist with that process to begin moving away from those products that maybe are holding you back a little bit from optimizing your processes. So
the webinar that I mentioned about business teams comparing tools and showing which Atlassian tools and solutions work well for business teams, that's the link to the page where you can sign up for it.
Yeah, and we actually have some of these webinars we do repeatedly, so there's a YouTube video of that one out there too that I posted earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining. I want to send out a special thanks to Paul Buffington and James Scott for participating in this forum. It really raised the quality of the forum up significantly higher. And of course, thanks for Brian and Connor for putting together our case studies as well. That was really fantastic. Thank you everyone else for coming. You guys know how to get a hold of us. Don't forget that we can help you out with all your Atlassian needs. Keep in touch, keep an eye on the website and check out our other events. Just as a quick teaser, I know we're off topic here, but we do have another major marketing event that's going to be happening in October around cloud migration. It's going to be our cloud migration workshop, and it is going to be an opportunity for you to build a migration workbook for your company's upcoming cloud migration. So there'll be more information on that to come. But thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure to do this with you, and we will see you out there in the Atlassian ecosystem.